Story 1. As an aspiring photographer, finding this old house with its functional darkroom felt like destiny. My excitement was immense. I couldn't wait to document every charming detail of my new home. The darkroom, dusty but intact, was a dream come true. I spent days cleaning and setting it up, envisioning countless hours developing my newfound inspiration. My first rolls of film were dedicated to the house itself. I captured its sunlit rooms, the intricate woodwork, and the peaceful garden. Every corner held potential. The initial batch of developed photographs were perfect. They reflected the serene beauty I saw, full of light and the quiet charm of my new sanctuary. I felt a deep connection to the house through my lens, convinced it was a place where creativity would flourish. This was my fresh start, my artistic haven. A week later, I developed a second roll. As the images emerged in the developing tray, I scanned them, looking for new perspectives. Then I saw it in a living room shot. A faint, unsettling shadow lingered near the fireplace. It wasn't there when I took the picture, I was certain. I dismissed it as a developing error, perhaps a stray dust particle or a chemical anomaly. The darkroom was old, after all. I re-examined the negative, but it seemed fine. Still, a prickle of unease lingered. I decided to reshoot that particular angle later. The incident was quickly forgotten amidst the joy of exploring my new home. I continued to capture its beauty, oblivious to what was truly unfolding. Subsequent photo development sessions, however, brought increasingly disturbing alterations. This happened to me, I assure you. A hallway shot taken with a closed door now showed it slightly ajar, just a sliver of darkness, but enough to make my stomach clench. Another image, a mirror reflection in the master bedroom, revealed a faint, dark outline of a figure where none had been when I pressed the shutter. My heart pounded. I remembered checking that mirror meticulously. There was no one there. This wasn't a trick of the light. Then a kitchen counter photo, a rusty knife clearly visible. I had no such knife and the counter had been spotless. My unease grew into genuine fear. These weren't developing errors. These were deliberate, chilling changes to my reality. I started checking rooms immediately after taking a photo, meticulously comparing what I saw with what I knew would develop. The house felt colder. Each new roll of film brought a fresh wave of dread. The photographs were becoming a horrifying alternate reality, captured just moments after I took them. I started sleeping with a light on, jumping at every creak. The house, once my dream, was slowly becoming my nightmare. The line between what I photographed and what developed blurred. My sanity felt increasingly fragile, caught between two worlds. The shifts became more pronounced, more grotesque. My breath hitched in my throat with every new print. Photos of the basement now showed blood-like stains on the concrete floor. They weren't there. I swear they weren't. Windows, previously empty, now held distorted faces pressed against the glass, eyes hollow, mouths agape in silent screams. Shadowy hands reached from behind furniture in my living room shots, skeletal fingers clawing at the air. I felt watched. The house itself began to feel different. Cold spots appeared without explanation, raising goosebumps on my arms. Faint whispers just beyond comprehension drifted through the silent rooms. Were they in my head, or was the house speaking? Fleeting shadows danced in my peripheral vision. When I turned, there was nothing, just the empty space. The line between the images and reality blurred irrevocably. I started to question everything I saw. I felt a growing sense of dread, a heavy weight pressing down on me. The house felt alive, and it wasn't friendly. My camera, once a tool of joy, became an instrument of terror, revealing horrors I couldn't unsee. I started seeing things even without the camera, fleeting glimpses of faces in the shadows, echoes of movement. The house's silence was no longer peaceful. It was oppressive, waiting, listening. Every sound amplified my fear. I began to dread developing new film, yet I couldn't stop. I needed to know what the house would show me next. It was a morbid fascination, a compulsion. Each photo was a glimpse into a reality I wished wasn't true. The house was not just showing me things, it felt like it was actively changing around me, mirroring the horrors in the prints. Driven by terror, I researched the house's history. I needed answers, a rational explanation for the nightmare unfolding. What I uncovered was gruesome, a past steeped in violence and tragedy, a dark history of multiple deaths within its walls. The details I found chillingly mirrored the grotesque events and figures now appearing in my photographs. It wasn't a coincidence. The house was not just reflecting a malevolent past, it was actively manifesting it, bringing it to life through my camera. I realized the photos weren't just images, they were portals, windows into the house's tormented soul, dragging me into its history. Developing the latest roll of film, the photos were no longer subtle. They depicted overt, horrifying scenes. One showed a struggle, blurry figures grappling. Another, a figure with a raised weapon, stark against the dark background. Then, a terrified face, mouth open in a silent scream, eyes wide with unimaginable fear. I recognized a corner of my kitchen. The final print emerged, my blood ran cold. It was of my own darkroom, taken moments ago. Standing directly behind me at the developing trays was a decaying, malevolent entity, its eyes fixed on the camera, on me. The air in the darkroom dropped to freezing. My breath hitched, visible in the sudden cold. I felt it. A guttural, ancient sound filled the space, vibrating through my bones. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated evil. I felt a tangible, evil presence mirroring the photograph, reaching out. I knew it was real. I'll never forget that night. I fled the house, leaving everything behind my camera, all negatives, the darkroom, the house itself. I never looked back. The memory of that final, horrifying image is burned into my mind. I forever wonder if a piece of that malevolence, a negative, a reflection, somehow followed me, and if those photographs are still shifting wherever they are. Story 2, I inherited Great Aunt Evelyn's old house. As an antique collector, I was thrilled by the clocks, dolls, and mirrors, a true treasure. The house felt ancient, steeped in Evelyn's life. Every surface held her bizarre collection, promising discoveries. I pictured cataloging items, polishing silver, restoring porcelain. This was my dream, a collector's paradise. The sheer volume was overwhelming, clocks, dolls, mirrors everywhere. I felt a surge of excitement, a collector's dream. An intricate music box drew my focus, surrounded by captivating pieces. I couldn't wait to delve into Evelyn's world. The charm faded. I heard soft ticking, but all clocks were unwound. Just old house noises I dismissed. A doll's head seemed subtly shifted. I chalked it up to imagination or the house settling, nothing more. A fleeting reflection caught my eye, movement where nothing stood. A trick of light, I told myself firmly. These anomalies were easily dismissed. The house was old, full of dust, my mind playing tricks surely. But the ticking unwound clock persisted. I'd wound it, then found it stopped, then heard it loudly. The dolls became unsettling. Their expressions seemed to change, eyes following me, a prickle of unease. Reflections in mirrors distorted. My image wavered, a shadow lingering just out of sight, unnerving. I started checking objects closely. Nothing was definitively out of place, yet everything felt subtly wrong. The feeling of being constantly watched intensified. Even alone, I felt eyes on me, an unseen presence. I'd turn quickly, catching nothing. Clock still, dolls unmoving, mirrors empty. It was maddening me. Objects subtly altered position when my back was turned. A book moved, a teacup shifted, not imagination. The house's quiet became oppressive, not empty but filled with silent, unwavering attention, deliberate. I saw things peripherally, a doll's arm lift, a pendulum swing, looked directly nothing. This happened. My mind raced for explanations, drafts settling, but the anomaly's consistency defied all logic. The dolls were worst, their painted smiles mocked, glass eyes now held cold, knowing intelligence. I realized these weren't inanimate, a chilling certainty. They possessed a collective, unblinking consciousness. They observed my every move. Their stillness was not inertness, but terrifying, patient vigilance. I knew. Each item, from thimble to clock, contributed to this pervasive scrutiny. I was trapped within their gaze. Mirrors were windows for their sight. My image felt captive, dissected by their collective gaze. Countless clocks, soft ticking, once comforting, now a synchronized heartbeat of malevolent life. Their unblinking gaze became a physical weight, exposed, every private moment shared with them. Sleep deprivation began, every shadow shifted, every creak a message. My nerves were frayed. Paranoia deepened. I argued with the silent watchers, begging them, futile I knew. I covered mirrors, desperate for privacy, but next morning cloths were always on the floor. I turned dolls to the wall for relief. Returning, they faced me again, gazes unwavering. Their silent reversion asserted control. They refused ignoring, demanding constant acknowledgement. The house a panopticon, every nook held an observing eye. My sanity was fraying fast. I felt like a specimen under observation, analyzed by unfeeling trinkets, losing myself. Air grew heavy with their presence, a palpable weight on my chest, making breathing difficult. My identity dissolved under their scrutiny. I was becoming another object in their collection. Desperate, I fought back. I focused on an unsettling porcelain doll, its eyes smug. It sat on the mantelpiece, its gaze fixed. It had to be removed, broken if necessary. My hand trembled reaching for it. A silent, collective tension filled the room, palpable. My fingers brushed its cold porcelain. A violent, synchronized reaction erupted. This happened. Clocks chimed erratically, a deafening cacophony. Mirrors rippled, flashing grotesque images. Dolls twisted, heads snapping to face me. A wave of pure, malevolent thought flooded my mind. Not a voice, but a crushing thought. You are ours now. It obliterated all sound. Then colder, you will never be alone. The words sealed my fate, inescapable. The house became my prison, walls closing in spiritually. No escape from their collection. I am a hollow shell, will broken, spirit crushed, extinguished by their constant gaze. Forever observed, I move like a ghost, another dusty relic in their terrifying display. My reflection shows a vacant stare, an empty vessel. I am just another living exhibit. Sometimes I glimpse Evelyn's ghost, mirroring my despair. She too joined their collection. Clocks tick, dolls watch, mirrors reflect my decay. My fate is sealed by their eyes. I am Evelyn now, we are pieces in the unblinking collection. You are ours, never alone. Story 3. My husband Mark and I were thrilled when we bought the old Miller place. A charming fixer-upper with potential, despite its musty smell and creaking floors. We envisioned our dream home. The house had its quirks. A persistent, musty smell clung to the air, a scent of damp earth and forgotten memories. We rationalized it as old house charm, a part of its character. The floorboards creaked even when no one walked, as if the house itself was sighing. A gentle symphony of age, we thought. It felt alive, adjusting to its new inhabitants. Our ambitious renovation plans started with the basement. A dark, damp space ripe for transformation. We planned new drainage, envisioning a bright, functional area, our first big project. Mark wielded the jackhammer, breaking through old concrete. The vibrations echoed. Then, a dull, squelching thud. He'd hit something soft, yielding, and utterly alien beneath the floor. I rushed over, my heart quickening. What was beneath solid concrete that felt so organic? We stared into the dark cavity, an unsettling silence filling the space. Dread grew. Beneath the fractured concrete, nestled in dark earth, was a pulsating, reddish-brown mass. It looked grotesque, unlike anything I'd seen. My breath hitched, a living thing. It was covered in slick membranes, shimmering faintly. Thick, fibrous roots like engorged veins spread into the surrounding soil. Horrifyingly beautiful, a monstrous bloom. The mass felt warm, almost alive, radiating heat. A faint, earthy odor rose, both sickly sweet and metallic, like old blood and damp soil, a scent of ancient decay. We tried to rationalize it, a strange fungus, a geological anomaly, desperately searching for scientific explanations, anything to dispel the growing dread, but unease coiled. The feeling of unease persisted, a cold, creeping shadow. This wasn't natural. We knew it deep down, a primal fear whispering. Something ancient stirred beneath our home. Mark started having vivid, disturbing dreams. He'd wake in a cold sweat, mumbling about the earth and something calling, terror in his eyes, palpable and unforgettable. I, too, felt an inexplicable pull. I found myself drawn to the basement, especially at night. A strange, magnetic force, a silent invitation from the earth itself, beckoning. The house began to change. The air grew heavy, thick with oppressive stillness. The charming mustiness transformed into something sinister, suffocating, a chilling presence. The old wood groaned with deeper resonance, no longer gentle creaking, but a mournful, pained sound, as if the very structure was suffering, crying out in agony. We started hearing faint, rhythmic thumping sounds from beneath the floorboards, slow, deliberate, like a giant, ancient heartbeat echoing through the silent house. Our pets, usually so calm, became agitated. Whiskers, our cat, hissed at the basement door, fur bristling. Buster, our dog, whined and cowered. Their terror was contagious. Whiskers would stare at the floor, specifically above the pulsating mass, eyes wide. She saw something we couldn't. Her terror confirmed our darkest suspicions. Then the plants we kept in the house began to wilt and die, despite our care. Their leaves curled, colors faded, turning brittle as if life was siphoned from them. Small animals, mice, then birds started appearing dead in the basement. Their bodies weren't just lifeless, they were strangely desiccated, almost mummified, unnatural. The sight of those shriveled creatures sent a shiver down my spine. It felt unnatural, like something actively draining life from anything too close to the basement's core. A persistent, low hum started emanating from the basement floor. Omnipresent, it penetrated our bones, rattling us from within. A deep, resonant, unsettling frequency. This constant hum made us perpetually drained, utterly exhausted. Our nerves frayed, tempers short. We were irritable, constantly on edge, like prey sensing a predator. We felt watched, observed by an unseen, ancient presence. Every shadow held eyes, every creak a knowing sigh. A suffocating sensation of constant scrutiny, never alone. One night I woke to Mark sleepwalking, his eyes wide and vacant, a chilling, blank stare. He moved with eerie, robotic precision through the silent house towards the basement. In his hand he clutched a raw piece of meat pulled from the fridge. He headed purposefully towards the basement stairs, a primal, horrifying instinct guiding him. My blood ran cold. He was mumbling a low, guttural murmur, feeding the earth, the hunger it demands. My heart pounded. This was beyond dreams, a sinister force taking hold. Terrified, I followed him, my bare feet silent. I had to stop him, whatever dark impulse guided him. This was something truly sinister taking hold of my husband. I reached him just before he touched the basement door. "Mark, wake up," I pleaded, shaking him. His eyes slowly focused, the vacant stare replaced by confusion. He had no memory of it, just a vague unease. We spent the rest of the night awake, huddled, the horror of his actions chilling us. The house was consuming him. But the next day, the house retaliated. A deep, guttural thrumming vibrated through the entire structure, louder, more insistent. The house itself seemed to growl. A sickly sweet, almost cloying scent filled the air, stronger than ever. The basement's odor amplified, permeating every room, a suffocating perfume of decay and growth. We ventured back into the basement, hearts heavy with dread. What we saw made us gasp. The pulsating mass had grown significantly, swelling, pressing against the concrete. Its veins, once merely visible, were now visibly throbbing, thick and engorged, pulsing with dark, viscous fluid beneath slick membranes, a monstrous heart beating below. A thin, reddish liquid seeped from its edges into the surrounding earth, staining the soil a deeper, ominous crimson. It looked disturbingly like blood nourishing the ground. It was then, with horrifying clarity, that we realized the truth. This wasn't just a growth. It was a living, malevolent entity, ancient and hungry, buried deep within the earth. Our house, our dream home, was merely its new mouth, a conduit, a gateway, demanding a horrifying form of nourishment. It wasn't just consuming small animals, it fed on life. The thought was unbearable. We had brought this horror into our lives, into our sanctuary. We were its unwitting hosts, its caretakers, destined to feed its insatiable hunger. There was no choice. We fled that house, scrambling out into the night, leaving everything behind. Our possessions, our dreams, all sacrificed to escape the breathing earth. The memory of that breathing earth, that pulsating horror, is forever etched into our minds. It haunts my dreams, a constant, vivid nightmare from which I can never truly escape. We never told anyone the full truth, fearing they'd think us mad. How could we explain a house that was alive, a malignant entity demanding blood beneath its foundations? We invented a story, a burst pipe, insurmountable structural damage. Anything to explain our sudden, frantic departure, the loss of our investment, our shattered lives. But sometimes, late at night, I still feel a faint tremor in the ground. A subtle vibration that seems to come from deep within the earth, a familiar hum that chills me. And I wonder, with a cold, creeping dread, if the earth beneath my feet is truly just inert soil, or if something ancient and hungry still stirs, waiting below. I wonder if it's still there, growing, expanding, reaching out with its fibrous roots. Has it found a new host, another unsuspecting couple drawn to a charming old house? The thought is a constant torment. Did we truly escape, or did we merely delay the inevitable? Is its hunger truly sated, or is it merely biding its time, growing stronger? I see old houses now, with their peeling paint and creaking floors, and a shiver runs down my spine. I see potential victims, not charming fixer-uppers. The world is tainted. The earth breathes. I heard it, I felt it, and I know with absolute certainty that it will breathe again, drawing in life, nourishing itself, forever hungry, forever waiting. And sometimes, in the deepest silence of the night, I swear I can hear a faint, distant thrumming, a heartbeat from below calling to me, reminding me the horror never truly ends. This is my truth, the new house's breathing earth. It took our home, our peace, and nearly our lives, and it waits always beneath the unsuspecting ground. It waits. Story 4. Moving into my new house was a dream come true. A charming old place with creaky floors and sunlit rooms. I spent weeks unpacking, making it my own, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. One sunny afternoon, I stumbled upon a small antique shop downtown. Tucked away in a dusty corner, I found it, a magnificent, ornate mirror. Its dark, carved wood seemed to hum with history. It was perfect. I envisioned it above my fireplace, a grand statement piece. The shopkeeper, a quiet old man, gave me a strange look as I paid, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Getting it home was an effort, but worth it. I carefully positioned it in my living room, directly opposite the main entrance. It immediately transformed the space, adding depth and elegance. I admired its beauty, the way it caught the light. This happened to me, and I remember thinking how lucky I was to find such a unique piece. Little did I know it had found me. The first few weeks were blissful. Then, subtle oddities began. Passing the mirror, I'd catch a glimpse of my reflection seeming off a momentary blur, a ripple across the glass. I'd stop, blink, and it would be gone, just my normal face staring back. I dismissed it, blaming fatigue, the old house's settling, or maybe just the way the light hit it. Sometimes the edges of my reflection would seem to waver like heat haze. I'd rub my eyes, convinced I was overtired. This was my new home, I told myself, no room for superstitions. One evening, I saw a faint shadow behind my reflected self, just at the periphery. I spun around, expecting a trick of light, but there was nothing, only the quiet hum of the house. The feeling persisted, a fleeting sensation that something wasn't quite right. I'd glance at the mirror, and for a split second, my reflection's eyes would seem wider, more hollow. This happened to me more than once. It was unsettling, but I was determined not to let my imagination run wild. New house jitters, I reasoned, nothing more than that. I started avoiding direct eye contact with my reflection, preferring to just use the mirror to check my outfit. It became a subconscious habit, a quiet concession to the unsettling feeling. The house was old, full of creaks and groans. I convinced myself these subtle distortions were just echoes of the past, harmless optical illusions in a beautiful, ancient object. But the feeling of being watched, of something else being present, began to grow. It wasn't just my reflection anymore, it was the space with an asterisk, the mirror that felt alive. I found myself rushing past it sometimes, a shiver running down my spine. This was my home, my sanctuary, yet a corner of it now held a strange, unsettling mystery. Then came the first clear distortion. I'll never forget that night. I was heading to bed, passing the mirror when my reflection shimmered, then shifted. For a horrifying second, it wasn't my face staring back. It was gaunt, terrified, with wide, desperate eyes and hollow cheeks. A visage of pure anguish. My breath caught in my throat, I froze, my heart hammering. The figure in the glass looked utterly desperate, as if trapped, screaming silently. It was real, this happened to me. The moment I focused, it vanished. My own face, pale and shaken, stared back, but I knew what I had seen. It wasn't a trick of light, it was a ghost of a face. I stumbled back, my mind racing. Who was that? What was that? The mirror, once a beautiful antique, now felt like a window to something horrifying, something other. Sleep was impossible. Every creak of the house, every shadow seemed to hold a new menace. I kept seeing that gaunt face behind my eyelids, those desperate eyes. I tried to rationalize it again, a nightmare, exhaustion, my imagination. But the memory was too vivid, too sharp. It felt like a violation, an intrusion into my sanity. The next morning, I approached the mirror with trepidation. It looked innocuous, just an old piece of furniture, but I couldn't shake the feeling it was watching me. I started keeping the living room lights on at night, a small, futile attempt to ward off the darkness that now seemed to emanate from the mirror's polished surface. This happened to me, and the fear began to settle deep in my bones. My beautiful new home, once a haven, now felt tainted by an unseen, terrifying presence. The unwanted reflections grew in frequency and intensity. It wasn't just fleeting glimpses anymore. Sometimes a decaying, skeletal figure would stare back, its jaw slack. Other times, it was a different woman entirely, panicked, her eyes wide with terror, her mouth silently forming words I couldn't understand. She was trapped, I knew it. Both figures seemed desperate, trying to reach out, to communicate. Their desperation was palpable, a silent scream resonating from the depths of the glass. I felt their torment. I started documenting them, scribbling descriptions in a journal. The details were always consistent: the same gaunt face, the same panicked woman, the same skeletal horror. This happened to me almost daily now. I'd catch a glimpse while making coffee or walking past to answer the door, each time a jolt of ice-cold dread. I tried covering the mirror with a thick blanket. For a while, there was peace. The dread lessened, but a strange sense of guilt and unease remained. It felt wrong, like abandoning someone. A part of me, a dark, irrational part, felt drawn to it, compelled to uncover it, to see what horrors awaited me. I even tried moving it. It was incredibly heavy, far heavier than it looked. I dragged it to a spare room, hoping distance would break the connection. But the dread followed. The house itself felt colder, emptier without its presence in the living room. It was as if the mirror was a vital, albeit terrifying, organ of the home. An inexplicable attachment, a morbid fascination, prevented me from truly getting rid of it. I couldn't sell it, couldn't give it away. It was mine, and I was its. One night, the silence of the spare room beckoned. I found myself drawn to the covered mirror, an irresistible pull guiding my steps through the dark house. I uncovered it. The reflection that greeted me was a swirling vortex of faces: the gaunt man, the panicked woman, the skeletal figure, all screaming silently. They were clearer, more defined than ever before. Their eyes pleaded, their mouths formed desperate, unheard words. I felt their collective agony wash over me. This happened to me, and I couldn't look away. It was a macabre dance of terror, a silent symphony of suffering unfolding before my eyes. My sanity felt stretched thin. The mirror began to hum, a low, guttural vibration I could feel in my chest. The air in the room grew heavy, cold, charged with an unseen energy. I knew then with chilling certainty that it wasn't just reflections. These were beings trapped within the glass, desperate to escape or perhaps to pull me in. A late-night encounter. I was woken by a faint scratching sound coming from the spare room. My heart pounded, but curiosity or compulsion drove me. As I approached, the scratching grew louder, more frantic. It sounded like fingernails dragging on glass, a desperate, rhythmic plea for release. I pushed the door open. The mirror's surface was rippling violently, like water being agitated. The reflections inside were a maelstrom of distorted agony. The panicked woman was at the forefront, her face contorted in a silent scream. Her lips moved, clearly mouthing a word, a warning, a plea. "Run," I thought I saw. Her hand, translucent and spectral, pressed against the glass from the inside, distorting its surface further. It was as if she was trying to break free, to shatter the barrier. I stood paralyzed, unable to move, unable to breathe. The raw terror emanating from the glass was suffocating. This happened to me, and it was utterly horrifying. The other figures swirled behind her, their eyes fixed on me, a mixture of warning and desperate hope. They wanted something from me, something I couldn't comprehend. The mirror remains. I moved it back to the living room, a macabre centerpiece. It's a constant, terrifying presence, a silent observer in my own home. I live with the knowledge of what's trapped within. I glance at it, always wondering whose reflection I'll see next, and if I'm truly alone in my own home. I'll never forget that night or the faces in the glass. Story 5. Moving into my new house was thrilling, charming, neglected, a perfect canvas for a musician. I envisioned creative hours. The living room, with high ceilings and wooden floors, promised excellent acoustics. My melodies would echo through these walls. Then I saw it, an antique upright piano tucked in a dusty corner. Keys yellowed, wood scarred, yet it held a faded presence. Beside it stood an old phonograph, horn tarnished, both left by previous owners. A strange oversight, yet fortunate. I felt an immediate, fated connection. As a musician, finding them felt like destiny. This house was truly mine. The first few weeks were idyllic. I unpacked, arranged my studio. The house hummed with peaceful silence. Then it began, faint, imperceptible sounds. A single piano key, a soft C, pressed when I was alone. I was in the kitchen. The sound was distinct, fleeting. I listened, heard nothing, just an old house settling. Days later, a brief, static scratch from the phonograph. So quick, subtle, I dismissed it as imagination. I dismissed them as old house quirks. Every old home has noises. Nothing to worry about, just my imagination. Occurrences grew frequent. A faint hum from the piano, a barely audible click from the phonograph, always when alone. I checked for drafts, loose panels, nothing. Logical explanations wore thin, replaced by a prickle of unease. This happened to me while reading. A single, mournful note drifted from the living room, chilling, unexpected. The phonograph static grew bolder, a short, jarring hiss instead of a gentle scratch, making me jump. A sense of dread settled. The house, once welcoming, now felt like it was holding its breath. My haven felt less safe. The sounds grew bolder, no longer single notes. Distinct, short, discordant melodies emanated from the living room. The piano played jarring chords, then stopped. Not a full piece, just fragments with unsettling precision. The phonograph joined, a crackle, then distorted, tuneless notes winding down quickly, an unbidden duet. These were not gentle sounds, off-key, jarring, lacking musicality. The discord was deeply unsettling. I tried to rationalize it. Faulty wiring, settling foundations, the distinct melodies defied simple explanations. The instruments played together, creating unsettling, off-key duets. A macabre performance just for me. I left recording equipment running for proof, but sounds always ceased when I approached. The house felt like a game, my sanity the prize. Rationalizations failed completely. The music had a chaotic pattern, a call and response, a dialogue of dissonance filling quiet hours. I felt watched not by eyes but by the sound itself, a chilling sensation observing my every move. Then came the voices. The phonograph emitted more than static, faint whispers woven into discordant tunes. They grew clearer, gutturals, low, not words but ancient, mournful sorrow. My blood ran cold. Sometimes voices shifted, becoming menacing. A low growl beneath piano notes, a dark promise from the past. They wove into melodies, creating a chilling, nonsensical song, a tapestry of terror, whispered syllables. I tried to record them, but like the music, voices vanished, a torment to question my own mind. This happened to me. The song was a constant hum of dread. It seeped into dreams, twisting melodies into cacophonies. The house itself seemed to breathe with this unholy duet. Walls creaked, floorboards groaned in harmony with eerie voices. It made my skin crawl. Every fiber screamed to leave, but morbid curiosity rooted me. The voices seemed to communicate through music. A ritual, a summoning, terror jolted through me. Driven by dread, I delved into the house's history. I needed answers to explain this symphony. It had to stop. Old deeds and local archives were my first stop, days poring over brittle documents, seeking dark secrets. I found Elias Thorne, a reclusive musician, known for eccentricities, his unconventional compositions. Mrs. Gable, a reclusive neighbor, shared whispers, Thorne's odd rituals, strange music, a mysterious disappearance decades ago. Thorne vanished without a trace. Legend said his music was tied to something dark, ancient, something he'd tried to summon. The pieces clicked, Thorne's rituals, strange compositions, his disappearance, all connected to my asterisk house. He hadn't just composed music, he'd composed a key. My instruments, his instruments, continued his terrifying symphony. The music became overwhelming. A continuous, deafening cacophony filled every corner of the house, full volume. Clear, guttural, numerous chanting voices layered within notes. They spoke of hunger, ancient pacts, a return. My blood froze. It felt like a physical presence pressing in, a suffocating weight. The house groaned, shook, trapped in its sonic grip. The symphony compelled me to what? To join it, to complete Thorn's ritual, a terrifying pull. I felt watched, hunted by the sound. Every note, every chant, and I, a predator closing in. I couldn't escape. Trapped in the living room, paralyzed by the deafening, malevolent symphony, air crackled with unholy energy. Instruments glowed with unholy, greenish light. Music culminated in a terrifying crescendo, a piercing shriek tearing my soul. Through distorted sound, a shadowy form coalesced, an ancient, hungry entity, eyes burning, fixed on me. I fled, barely escaping. I never returned, sold the house at a loss, never telling why. But sometimes I still hear faint, discordant notes, chilling whispers.